4K gaming used to mean one thing. You need the biggest, baddest GPU, like a 3090, a 4090, or even a 5090 if you can afford it. But with DLSS and frame generation evolving, do you really still need a 90 tier card to get a clean 4K experience? Or has the mid-range hardware finally caught up? So for many years, gaming at 4K with high FPS was not really something that accessible. Then DLSS came in. DLSS 2 gave us usable upscaling, DLSS 3 introduced frame generation with trade-offs however, and DLSS 4 claims to deliver near native sharpness with huge performance boosts. That's the shift that we're testing today. I got my hands on a 5070 Ti to put DLSS 4 with multi-frame gen to the test. And yes, I'll be comparing it to my 1490 for reference, which can only do 2x frame generation. Now here's the key. The 5070 isn't just cheaper, it's smaller, lighter, and more power efficient. That means it can fit into more builds, it doesn't demand a giant PSU, and it runs cooler. In other words, you're saving money not just on the GPU, but on your entire setup. Can this card actually deliver a 4K experience similar to a 4090? Let's find out. Let's start with Devil May Cry 5. Yes, it's an older title, but it's still one of the better looking games and it makes for a great baseline. Everything is maxed out at 4K, and on the 5070 Ti, we're averaging around 170 frames per second, with frame times in the 6.5 to 7 millisecond range. That's impressive for a game that still looks this good, and it really shows how inefficient a lot of the newer Unreal Engine 5 titles are by comparison. Switching over to the 4090, performance jumps dramatically to around 260 FPS, with frame times cut in half, averaging about 3.5 to 4 milliseconds. Basically double the performance, exactly what you'd expect from a flagship card brute forcing native rendering. Our second game is Spider-Man 2. Everything is maxed out again at 4K with DLSS set to quality and frame generation turned on. On the 5070 Ti, we're averaging above 60 frames consistently, very respectable considering how demanding this game is. Frame times are excellent too, sitting around the 0.4 milliseconds. For me, that's already a win. The 4090 pushes closer to 100 frames, though strangely with much higher frame time. Not sure if that's a bug or a quirk, but either way, the performance jump here isn't as significant as you might expect, honestly. Moving to something new, Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater. Settings are maxed with DLSS on, but no frame generation. Also worth noting, this game is capped at 60 FPS. On the 5070 Ti, we're seeing about 37 to 38 frames on average, with frame times hovering around 29 milliseconds. Not great, but that's more about the game than the GPU. Performance has been notoriously bad here. Even the 4090 couldn't hit the 60 FPS cap, averaging around 56. This just shows how poorly optimized some newer releases are, no matter what hardware you throw at them. Now for Cyberpunk, one of the most demanding benchmarks out there. I ran the 5070 Ti with 4x frame generation, everything maxed out with path tracing enabled. The results? Around 87 frames on average, with frame times between 11 and 12 milliseconds. Solid performance considering the settings. The 4090, running just 2x frame generation, still pulls ahead, averaging about 104 frames with much smoother frame times. But considering the massive price gap between these two cards, the 5070 Ti putting up numbers like this is extremely impressive. So across the board, the 4090 still dominates when brute force matters. But the 5070 Ti, thanks to DLSS 4 and multi-frame generation, is delivering performance that honestly would have been unthinkable for a 70 tier card just a few years ago. And this shift isn't just on PC. Take the PS5 Pro for example. It's heavily relying on PSSR, which is a form of upscaling and is one of the main reasons it's able to deliver a better 4K experience. The next-gen consoles like the PS6 and the Xbox will almost certainly use frame generation tech out of the box. The reality is, native 4K is becoming less of a priority. Upscaling and AI frame generation are giving more people access to high FPS 4K gaming without breaking the bank or the power bill. After my own testing, here's what I think. Yes, if you're chasing benchmark purity, maxing every graphics slider, and demanding 120 plus FPS with DLSS set to balanced quality or even DLLA for the sharpest output, you still want a 90 tier card, like the 4090 or the 5090. Those are just unmatched in brute performance. But these new 70-tier GPUs with DLSS 4 and multi-frame generation are absolutely putting up a serious competition. Most people will tell you frame generation is fake frames or unnecessary, but the reality is this tech is maturing fast. I understand it's still buggy at times, but when it works, and it opens doors for far more games to step into 4K high FPS experiences without dropping flagship money. That's a big win for all of us. So what do you think? Would you settle for a mid-range card if DLSS 4 is perfected, or will flagship GPUs always matter? Let me know in the comments. I'm ready for this debate. If you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a like and stay subscribed for future content.